I've just realised I don't own a physical copy of any of the books on this list. And honey, that's growth. Hello. If you're noticing that this is the same setup from the opening of my Christmas reading vlog, mind your business. I live in a glorified studio. It's very small. I don't have a lot of filming spaces or clothes for that matter. So now don't you feel like an asshole. I'm just kidding. I love you so much. Oh my God, this is getting toxic. I'm just kidding. But you know what is toxic? The 7 out of the 70 books I read this year, that's 10%. The 10% of books I read this year that were absolute garbage. That's what's toxic. I guess I should be happy that there were only 7 books I read this year that were so... My stomach's rumbling and I'm really hoping it's not picking up on camera. I'm changing track completely. There were some books on this list that I was like, hated that, but it's just not for me. I get it. I can see something in there. But then there's a couple towards the top end of this where I'm like, whew, that is offensive. That is egregious. That has attacked me personally. And you know what? I could have decided to spread positivity. Why did I say that like that? I could have decided to spread positivity. I could have been like, I'm making content. I only want to talk about the positive stuff, but I don't. I like the way it feels to be a hater. So I'm going to put my hands up. I'm here to say now, I am here to unabashedly hate on these books, and that's my right. And because we always need to put this disclaimer out there now, because some people want to get in the comments of a bean recipe and be like, I don't like beans. I don't give a fuck if you don't like beans. Wait, I'm the person that doesn't like beans in this situation. But just because I don't like beans, if you like beans, that's fine. I actually love beans in real life, so this is a hard analogy for me, but I don't need... The beans are these books, and I don't need you to get in the comments and be like, but I love beans. That's great, but just keep the beans over there. I think we should just get into it before I alienate you anymore. I have a frozen pizza in the oven. So let's start with the book on this list that is the least bad of the bad books I read in 2023, and that's Eileen by Ottessa Moshfegh. And before you try to tell me that like the girlies that get it, and the girlies that don't, I get it. When you see my best books of the year list, you know, God willing, I even film it, but when you see that, you will see that when it comes to Ottessa Moshfegh, I get it. I just don't get it when it comes to this particular book. I don't get it. This to me was just a blatant case of false advertising. The blurb on the back of this book promised me like Thelma and Louise. It promised me Eileen Wuornos. Oh my God, like that's her name and everything. What this book promised to give me was Eileen, the main character. She's a young girl. It's like the 50s or the 60s, I think, and she works in a prison for young male offenders. And this promised me that she was going to meet this new hot chick that starts working at the prison. She was going to become obsessed with her. And what I took away from the summary is that they were going to go on like a cool girl murder spree. But that's not what happened. That's not what this book gave me. What this book gave me was the shits. And I mean that literally. She doesn't even meet like this woman that she ends up being obsessed with until like a decent chunk of the way into the book. And the rest of the time, also there's barely any killing. So if you were there for the killing, girl, don't bother. The entire like half of the book before she meets this woman, it's just her going to work, talking about the security guard she has like a crush on, talking about living with her dad who's abusive and an alcoholic, and talking about the literal shit she takes, talking about the like big painful shit she takes. And it sounds funny, but it's not funny. Like, it could have been funny, but it wasn't. It was just boring. And I think that's my biggest problem with it. Like, I thought this book was going to be so good, and it was so fucking boring. I'll probably still watch the movie, though. I actually think it's going to be a better movie than it was a book. If Anne Hathaway showed up at a prison, yeah, I'd go nuts too. The next book, number 6, worst book of the year. This is a case of the harder they climb, the worse they fall. The higher they soar, the bigger they fall.
Have you ever had a dream that you
You know what I mean, and I'm saying that because my 6th worst book of the year is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. You've read Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. You've read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and you thought to yourself, you were like, you know what I really want is a book about the kids that the guy Evelyn Hugo was married to for one night abandons. You were like, Taylor Jenkins Reid, that's what I really want. No one has ever wanted that. I feel like the other 2 Taylor Jenkins Reid books I mentioned, you know, they're bestsellers for a reason. They are so real. They are so engaging. Yes, they're character studies, but there's still a through line. There's still a plot through line. This book is just a meditation on what it means to be a bad dad, what it means to have a bad dad, and what it means to throw a rager of a party. This book is like a sad Australian coming of age film. This book is like one of those, but it's set in California. If you had told me Tim Winton wrote this, I would not be surprised. I just don't get it. Like, this book has no reason to exist. No one cares about Mick Reaver, and I care about his kids even less. I'm lying. I care about them more because he's a shit person, but I don't care enough to read a whole book about them. But I did. They're like, oh, he abandoned us. I hate him so much, but I'm too proud to reach out. Okay, cool. Seems like you don't need him. Your sister's got a house in the Hollywood Hills. Well, no, it's not the Hollywood Hills. It's Malibu. It's fucking in the title. But you don't need him. Like, who cares? This book is basically just Taylor Jenkins Reid playing The Sims in like the version of Hollywood that she's created. She's just made up all these characters, and she's like, it would be so cool if I had them converge on this one house and all have a big party together. And it's so much like The Sims that at the end, when she got bored of playing, she just started a big fire. That's not a spoiler, by the way. It's on like the blurb on the back of the book that this is like the lead up to when there's a big fire. So yeah, this book is not good. And there is like some crossover between this and Carrie Soto is Back. But honestly, you don't need to read this to read Carrie Soto is Back, and you shouldn't. That book's not perfect, but it's a way better book. And this one, you can just skip it. Just skip it. Okay, so the next one, worst book number 5, I feel kind of bad about. And that's because it's someone's memoir. The book is Becoming Free Indeed by Ginger Duggar Volo. And I feel mean like saying that about someone's memoir, but it's also not really a memoir. What this book is just an ad for a church. Look, one of my special interests is fundamentalist Christianity. It's not as weird as that sounds, by the way. It's really interesting. And so when I heard one of the Duggar kids was writing a book, I ran. I was like, where is it? Where can I find it? It was on Scribd, narrated by Ginger herself. So I immediately start listening. And when I tell you this was painful to get through, I'm not lying. As I said, this isn't really a memoir. This is more of like a meditation on Ginger's faith. And that's great. Love that for her. But it's not a memoir. And it was boring. It was super repetitive. At the end of every chapter, it would basically come back to being like, yeah, this is why I believe this. And this is why I love my parents. And I condemn Bill Gothard. And I was like, yeah, I know. You've told me that already. So Bill Gothard is this guy. He started the IBLP, the Institute of Basic Life Principles. Real ones know. Real fundy snarkers know. And he was a really weird guy. He was like, hey, I'm not married. I don't have any kids, but men, oof, you better be leading the household. You better be having your wives and your children under your command. And you need to have as many children as possible. They're the quivers in your... They're the arrows in your quiver, is what I'm trying to say. for when we're fighting the battle. Because you're part of the army of God. Bill Gothard was like, I love a woman with long curly brown hair and a long denim skirt. And I'm going to have a bunch of them working for me. And it's not, don't look into it. He's either in jail or dead now. One of those, I forget. But the point is, that was the belief system the Duggars had. That was their whole thing. And this whole book is Ginger being like, I'm not that kind of conservative Christian anymore. I'm this different kind of conservative Christian. Please consider becoming this different kind of conservative Christian. What I wanted was a tell-all, and I knew before I went in that that's not what I was going to get. People on Reddit were like, it's not a tell-all. Don't go into it thinking it's a tell-all, but did it need to be so boring? Did it need to be so repetitive? Did it need to be so forgiving of Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar? I don't think so. There's more work to be done, clearly, for her to realise that there's something wrong there. Every chapter is like, my parents were great. I condemn Bill Gothard though. Like, that guy was evil. And he was like, you know, giving me anxiety so bad. I wanted to delete myself. She's like, but I don't blame my parents. I blame Bill Gothard. And I'm like, well, who do you think, Ginger, taught you about the teachings of Bill Gothard? Like, who do you think brought that into your life? And she had 2 co-writers on this, her husband and a ghostwriter, I'm pretty sure. And they still couldn't work out how to craft a compelling narrative.
Too many cooks, too many cooks, too many cooks, too many cooks, too many.
It's not even the best book by a Duggar that came out this year. I read Counting the Cost, Jill Duggar's memoir, when it came out, and that's some good shit. That's the tell-all shit that we all came here for. So I would just read that. I would not read Becoming Free Indeed unless you particularly care about Ginger Duggar specifically for some reason. Okay, so the next one, the 4th worst book I read this year, actually kind of breaks my heart because it's by one of my favourite authors, and that's The Final Girls Support Group by Grady Hendrix. My dude, what was this? I was flabbergasted. I was. This book is about, as the title suggests, a support group of, they're all like middle-aged, older women at this point that were the final girls in real life crimes. They were all, the only person to survive a massacre or like the last victim of a serial killer that survived. They're in this support group together run by this psychologist. I think she's a psychologist, and she's using them as like a research project. And when I tell you, I had worked out who the killer was that was picking them off one by one, like 30 pages into the book. I'm not lying. What reason would I have to lie about that? That I worked out the plot of like a pretty shitty book, like 30 pages in. It was more of a thriller than his normal books, to be fair. And I just don't think it suits him. I don't think it suits him. Constructing that kind of plot, it just didn't work. Like all of the books on this list, it was boring and way too easily solvable. And like deconstructing the final girl at this point, you know, it's been done to death. There's other books about it. There's other fiction books about it. There's movies about it. Movies that are meta-commentary on it. Meta-commentaries in like 2 forms. And I know like Grady Hendrix is a big horror head. Like obviously he's a master of that. Like he knows. That's why he's normally so good at poking fun at horror tropes, is he knows how they work. So he can poke fun of them at his books. But this one didn't even really do that. It certainly wasn't funny. And I get why he would want to take like one of the biggest tropes in horror and put his stamp on it. But I just don't get what he was trying to do. And that sucks because I love him so much. So from now on, I'm just going to pretend this book doesn't exist. So we move swiftly on to the next. Number 3, worst book of the year. And this is where we are getting into the pointy end of it. This is when we are getting into the books that well and truly suck. And this particular entry is a lesson in not trusting TikTok and not trusting what is popular on there, because the book I'm about to talk about is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This book is allegedly a sports romance, but you could be forgiven for forgetting, because you're going to need a magnifying glass to find any sports in this. The plot that this book sold me onto, of an ice skater and like a hockey jock at college having to team up because her normal figure skating partner gets injured, that's not in the book. There's like 2 scenes of that happening. She doesn't have to compete with him in a figure skating competition. That doesn't happen. What this book is just stumbling and stumbling and stumbling from sex scene to sex scene and pretending there's like a plot in between. Someone send out a fucking search party, because the plot is missing. This book is so long, and for what? Not the last time I'll say that in this video, but we'll get there. I just don't know. I liked Henry. Henry in this book was like a fun character. And Hannah Grace is like, look, I have no interest at all at reading Wildfire, which is like the next book in this series. But there's a Henry book coming out next year, and I'm like, maybe she could get me to read the Henry book, but I don't know, because this was so boring. Like, it was actually painful. The main characters, Anastasia the figure skater, she's really rude. Like, she just seems like a rude and bad person. And Nate, the guy, he's a cardboard cutout. I could not tell you one personality trait he has outside of like not liking his dad. That's it. And it's getting to the point where I just have to like ask, like, are there any sports romances out there that don't suck? Are there any? That's another question that's going to come up again later in this video, but seriously, I'm so serious right now. Like, am I just going to have to write it myself? Is that what this is going to come down to? I'm just going to move on to the second worst book of the year, a book that truly sucks so bad. It sucks so bad that I read this book in January and I still remember how powerfully it sucks. And that's Wonderland by Jennifer Hillier. And I'm kind of glad this is in here, to be honest, just because I didn't want the top 3 to be entirely sports romance heavy, minor spoilers. Yeah, this book is just bad. I found this book truly upsetting. I will say I found this book truly upsetting. You may know she runs the Book Troop, which is like a book club where once a month she gets people to read a mystery thriller book that she's picked. And towards the end of last year, early this year, when I was getting back into BookTube, I was like, oh, well, that'll be a nice way to, get myself reading again, be reading things other people are reading on the internet. And this book was so egregious that I kind of just didn't end up reading any of the other picks for the rest of the year. And Gabby, I'm sorry, it's not her fault. I have read some of the other books that she did pick throughout the year. I just haven't kept up with them and read them at the same time as the Book Troop. And for that, I'm sorry. I'm also just a mood reader though, so what are you going to do? Maybe next year I'll jump on a few more of the prompts. Hell, maybe I'll jump on some of the lives with like a 16-hour time difference. Can you tell I hate this book so much I don't want to talk about it at all? So basically what this is a mystery thriller about a theme park just outside of Seattle. It's given Pacific Northwest. And this place is the focus point of this entire town. It's basically what keeps the town running. And that's why the police have not properly investigated why this place has a decades-long string of like teenage boys that have worked there going missing. It's giving cover-up. It's giving conspiracy. And so when I first heard about it, I was like, yeah, I'll give that a go. Spooky carnival, police cover-up, are you kidding me? But what this book is bad and truly upsetting. I'm still wondering to this day why so many characters in this book are sexually attracted to teenagers, because like some of it's relevant to the plot, because remember, this is a book about teenage boys going missing, but a lot of it's not. A lot of it is not. And also the only Latino character in this is a janitor, and he's also a sex offender, so that's a thing as well. And the lady detective that's like the main character in this, I think we're supposed to think she's like a badass, and she's like really cool because she fucks. Like, we get it. That you've made that quite clear, Jennifer Hillier, that she fucks. But like, I actually hated her. Like, by the end, I just thought she was a bad mum. This book was so bad, I actually thought it was a debut novel. I was like, oh, maybe like this was Jennifer Hillier's first book and then she got better. But then I was reading the author's note at the end, and like one of the characters in this book is a spin-off of like another series that she already wrote. And I was like, oh my God. And the main character of that series that she had like appear in this series as like an Easter egg for the Hillier heads, I guess. He was a black guy, and the way he spoke, the way he was written as speaking, like, okay. And also, it seems like the only reason he showed up was because this woman is a single mother. No one was watching her kids. Once like 14, she has a job at the fair, like the park, like whatever. She can kind of handle herself. But one was like under the age of 10, I think, and no one was ever watching these kids. And people like me were starting to think she's a bad mum. And I think Jennifer Hillier was like, shit, I gotta have someone watching these kids. So she ropes this poor guy into doing it. I don't know, man. Just, this book was written in 2014, and some of the like casual, oh my God. And it was also like really transphobic towards the end, and like kind of homophobic as well. Like the way it was written, it was giving much earlier than 2014 even. It was giving like Jodi Picoult 2003, but like not good. Like, I'm sorry to Miss Jodi, she's a much better writer than that. And her TikToks are hilarious. Yeah, this book is just not good. It's really bad, and it would have been the worst book I read all year if it was not for the fact that I made the very misguided decision to read my worst book of the year, the worst book I've ever read in my life. I didn't think I was capable of giving a book 1 star on Goodreads. I didn't think I had it in me, because I don't give 5 stars very easily, but I think I'm generous in terms of seeing like what the author was trying to do, and being able to see that there is an audience for everything out there somewhere. But this next book was truly offensive to me for reasons I'm going to get into. Yeah, and I just think it's the worst book I've ever read. And I'm so sorry to everyone that loves it, but Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh is the worst book I have ever read in my life. And there's 2 reasons for that. This book commits 2 separate crimes. The first one is it's not well written. You know how everyone makes fun of the start of Twilight? How it's just Bella being like, yeah, I'm just a girl who doesn't fit in. Let me list all of my physical attributes to you. That's what this book does in the first chapter, but like on steroids. The book goes out of its way to, oh my God, I can't even remember her name. What is her name?
Many hours later.
What is her name? Shannon. The book just goes out of its way to be like, I'm so tiny. Like I haven't even hit puberty. And you can say it's due to like malnutrition and stuff because she's had a bad upbringing. That's fine. I get it. That would be fine if the book didn't also go out of its way to like sexualize that about her through the male main character's point of view. I just realized I haven't even explained what this book is about. So the whole reason I read this piece of shit, bullshit book, is because we were talking about it earlier, sports romances. You know, most of the typical sports romances, they're like hockey. They're like basketball. They're sports that like I don't care about personally as an Australian person. But when I found out there was a rugby romance series out there, I was, and it had like 4.4, might be like 4.6 or something ratings on Goodreads. I was like, well, I have to read it. This simply must be the best book ever written. But it's not. It's the worst book ever written. Back to its first crime, it's being poorly written. Yeah, there's that horrible introduction to Shannon as a character. It is so long. There is no need, ever, for a romance book to be 800 pages long. I said earlier, you know, Icebreaker was too long, and for what? But in this case, truly for what? I mean, I know there's other books in the series, but they don't even really get together. By the end of the book, they're not officially dating or anything. They haven't kissed. In 800 pages? Are you kidding me? I was putting out a, missing warning for the plot of Icebreaker. We need to drag the forces away from that. We need to start reallocating resources because, oh my God, Chloe Walsh's editor is missing and I fear they've been murdered. Editing would have fixed, I feel, a lot of the issues with this. This just needed 1, 2, 3 more sets of eyes across it before it went out into the world because, God, it's so bad. Twice in the first 100 pages, maybe even the first 50 pages, someone lets go of a breath they didn't know they were holding. I'm not kidding. In those words. It's meme worthy, how bad it is. And yes, it's poorly written, but it's second biggest crime. And the thing that upset me the most is, to me, this book is trauma porn about a working class person in a way that I found very upsetting. And I think the message of this book, I think it's very damaging to only paint working class people in a light where they are all alcoholics, abusive, and not just within Shannon's family where domestic abuse and alcohol abuse happens, because obviously that's something that happens in real life across all class barriers, mind you. But you'd be forgiven for thinking that's not the case if this book was your only source of information. At the start of the book, we're just told that people at Shannon's regular public school are... Sorry, I'm really worried I'm going to cry. The people at Shannon's regular public school are just really terrible to her for no reason. You're trying to tell me not one of the poor kids is redeemable. You're trying to tell me they're all terrible people. And the message you want... Because this is a book about teenagers. Chloe Walsh, is the message you want teenage girls to take away from your writing that the only way they can feel safe in the world and the only way they can be happy is if a rich boy comes along to save them? Because that's what I got from this book. No one is nice to Shannon until she transfers to a fancy private school, and Chloe Walsh just creates such a stark class divide between these two worlds. The world Shannon is being led into, the world she's seeing by, transferring to this school and getting involved in the rugby world. The message we're getting is that this world is good and that the world she comes from is bad. She's going to get rescued, but the rest of the working class community should be demonized, and she'll never be happy if she stays there. It's truly messed up beyond words. I can't even... This is rugby union, right? This is rugby union that we're talking about. It's a sport that's pretty much only played in private schools. It's very clear to me as someone who's a rugby league fan, the working class, the poor person's version of it. It's very clear to me what is being signaled here. TikTok is full of people making cute edits about this book that really makes me upset. It's just trauma porn. It's like, how much can Chloe Walsh make her suffer? Shannon's mum has a miscarriage due to her father's abuse on Shannon's birthday. Like, that's a plot point. It's not a romantic story for working class girls and working class women to be abused just so some rich guy can come and save them. And Johnny is some rich guy. Don't get it twisted. They have him say in the book, he's like, oh no, I'm not posh. Like, I'm actually from Dublin. Like, I'm not like the people in this town. That's fucking bullshit. His mum is a fashion designer who's always like flying to London for work. They could afford to buy this crazy fancy house near to the school just so Johnny can go to like the fanciest rugby school in the land. Like, don't try to tell me he's not posh and he's not a rich person, because that's supposed to throw me off the scent of what you're doing. Like, I won't fall for that. And like, I'm not surprised at all now that Chloe Walsh is on the list of like authors that have been liking pro-Israel posts. Like, that's all I'm gonna say. Like, she's got a shitty sense of morals. It just secretes shitty morals. And like, I'm sorry if you're one of the people that loves it, but like, love yourself. I don't know, man. It's kind of a downer to end it on, but I don't know what else to say. Like, it's simply the worst book I read this year, and it's simply the worst book I've ever read. I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm tipsy. I'm kind of hungry. I'm upset thinking about that piece of shit book. And if you want to let me know what the worst book you read this year is, you can do that in the comments. You can let me know what the best book you read is too, if you want to spread some positivity rather than whatever the hell this was, me having a breakdown towards the end. I can't even try to be funny anymore. I'm just done. I'm going to leave it there for now. Follow me here. Follow me on TikTok. Peruse my Etsy for fun bookish stuff. But otherwise, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.